we're live on Facebook.
Facebook Live again, and we are doing Monday morning marketing and choosing great fonts for the web. And why is choosing great fonts for the web important? Well, it's funny you ask that. So if you don't have good fonts in your design, people are much less likely to read your thing. And also, if you have a website and it's really hard for the browser to load your site, let's say your website is too heavy, too many fonts, then people will leave the website right away. So you want it to be good so it's readable and people will want to read your stuff. And on the other side, you'll want to not include too many fonts so the website doesn't take forever to load. And that's a huge ranking in Google, or thing for Google's algorithm ranking your site too.
Yeah, so besides that, the importance of ranking for Google, which, I mean, let's be honest, you and I probably talk about that more than most average people.
Yes.
We do get paid that way though, so that's part of the motivation.
Yeah.
So tell me, what are the ideal readability best practices for the web? I mean, things are changing all the time. Tim, what's hot today?
And what is hot today?
Is it only hot today? Has it been hot for a while? Like, let's just.
Before I get started, I just want to say thank you for joining us, Kyle. And thank you for joining us, Melissa.
Hey, Melissa.
Thank you for joining us, John. And thank you for joining us, my mom, Tammy.
See you on Instagram.
How do you pair fonts for the web? Well, contrast between styles. So you have to have different types of fonts. So if you have one very stylish script font for headlines and you have a simpler font underneath it, that's going to go out better than having two very stylish fonts or two very simple fonts. And I would say it's a lot easier, unless you're the most badass designer of all time, to go classic and simple versus intense and stylish. So if you are just trying to put together a design and you're not a professional designer, I always suggest go simple first.
Got it.
Go simple first.
Is that because it's easier, or tell me a little bit why?
I'm telling you, like, basically people, I've said this before on Twitter and somebody roasted me because I'm like, you should have maximum like 2 fonts.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you can have 10 fonts if you know what you're doing. Yes, that's if you know what you're doing.
If you know what you're doing, yeah.
So if you don't know what you're doing, it's a lot easier to not mess up.
Yeah.
If you stick with 2 fonts in your design. And this goes for if you're, printing out an agenda for a meeting, or your whatever you happen to be using fonts for. I strongly suggest having 2 clearly different fonts, one for headlines and one for body copy.
Cool.
But not going 5, not going 10 fonts. It's just too many, and it makes you look messy. Yeah. It makes you look unprofessional.
I think we can all relate to either a sign or, like you said, something printed that somebody just tried to get too fancy, too cute with some fonts. In fact, there was a big event in a town that I live in this weekend. Yeah. I don't want to go too deep because I still like everybody there. But man, I couldn't read what the title of the event was, and it took me about 4 weeks of driving by this sign. And gosh, I just wonder how many people missed out on this really cool event because they couldn't read it.
Exactly. And for the web, there are load time implications for having too many fonts. So your website should likely not be loading more than 2 or 3 fonts. Yeah. It's terrible for load time. And we've all been on that website where we wanted to get the information, but it's still sitting there 10 seconds after we landed on the page. How frustrating is that? And what does that imply for your vibe around that company?
Yeah.
Usually the vibe's not great. Usually you're like, oh, first of all, you're like, is my internet broken? Is there something wrong with my computer? And then it's like, I don't like this. It's not a good vibe for that company.
Yeah. So what are some of your favorite web fonts today, and why are they your favorite?
So just to get into the fun stuff really quick, what are some of my favorite fonts? Gotham is a wonderful font. And I don't know if you guys have heard of Helvetica. It's usually like a respected font. It's a simple font and it goes back a long time. Gotham is a kind of a newer, cleaner, more modern version of that. So if there's one font that I could suggest for you to check out, it would be Gotham. Second, Publico Extra Bold is a great serif font, meaning it's got the little edges that kind of are fancy edges. That's a serif font. Publico Extra Bold is a great modern font for 2019, 2020. And then Proxima Nova, which is my second favorite on that clean kind of Helvetica-esque style, Proxima Nova. And then a stylish alternative for headlines would be Geo Grotesque. So I'm just going to get into these 4 fonts just so that you have an idea of some fonts that we love. And it's all about clean, modern. And then you know what? I'll throw one more at you. And I always talk about this one. It's Brandon Grotesque. And I always call it out to my wife whenever I'm driving around and I see it on a billboard. I'm like, guess what font that is? And she's like, it's Brandon Grotesque, isn't it? But Brandon Grotesque black, and using it as all caps, because that's actually where it looks the best. There's some fonts that just look better in all caps.
Yeah.
Not every font looks, the non-caps version looks that sweet. So
you're talking about, some fonts look best in all caps.
Yeah.
Tell me, are there any other best practices for the web in terms of readability that maybe you skipped over earlier?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is actually funny because a lot of people, even people that I respect a lot of their design, when they put out their blog posts, for instance, it's not super readable. And I actually care about readability. And this is for the web, but otherwise, the most important thing for readability is you need contrast between the foreground and the background. So if you have something over a photo, there needs to be a shadow behind the text, or the photo needs to be darkened. That's a problem sometimes when people don't do that. And it looks really cheap on websites when you don't have that. And then the other thing is that you shouldn't make your line width, like how long a line is, more than 900 pixels wide. And that's much shorter than a lot of people are doing. That's why if you go on medium.com, they've mastered readability, and the columns are they're not that wide.
Yeah, pretty narrow.
Because there's actually a science behind readability. They've done studies on this, and it's actually about that wide, that 900 pixel length. And if you go much wider than that, it's not very easy to read. We've all been on that blog where it's like, oh my gosh, when does this end?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And maybe that's not something that you care about if you're not a designer, but it is a quick way to make your blog better on your company's website, to switch to that 900 pixel wide column.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then line height is important. This is something I see that non-designers could get a lot out of just hearing the design perspective very quickly. Line height is the difference between, the space in between 2 lines in font. And this goes for print design. This goes for if you're printing a meeting agenda, if you have a sign for your apartment, whatever it happens to be, focusing on that line between that space between 2 lines of text, that will make you feel like you're a designer, even if you're not, if you pay attention to that. So clean, modern fonts, go with Gotham, go with Geo Grotesque, go with Brandon Grotesque, black, all caps, and care about the line length and the line height. So those are some quick ways to get the most out of fonts, and I've kind of prioritized this. So even if you just take these tips and apply them to your design, apply them to your company's website, you'll get a lot out of this, and it will look more designerly.
I like it.
And designerly is just our way of saying it looks like you know what you're doing, even if you don't.
Yeah, simple.
And that's really the key as far as making sure that your website is solid. You don't want it to load too long. You want it to be super readable. And I appreciate you guys watching this morning. Join us next time for Monday morning marketing and coffee.
Do a little bit more of what you love today.
Yeah, this week and today, do a little bit more of what you love. And thank you guys so much for joining us. We appreciate the attention that you guys give us on Monday morning. And we'd love to continue to give you guys value here. So if there's anything you want to hear more about, leave it in the comments.
I like it.
And if you're on Instagram, check it out, facebook.com/hookagency. Have a great week, guys.
See you, everybody.
Bye.
See you, Instagram.